welcome everybody. This is our first agentic AI webinar with Datagrid. So today we'll be talking about SOPs and building SOPs in construction. We have had a number of really interesting use cases in construction, and SOPs have a huge role to play on how agents can perform, what kinds of tasks agents can perform. So we'll be covering a lot of ground here today. I brought Chris Everest from BN Builders as a panelist with me here. Chris is going to be diving into how he builds SOPs, his experience guiding standards within companies, and building out the types of AI workflows that we're going to be seeing here today. So I'll pass it on to Chris for a brief introduction. Chris, please introduce yourself and your experience. I think you have an amazing background that everybody would love to hear. So please do your intro.
Thanks, Tiago. First, thanks for inviting me to join you today. I've been with BN Builders as in the role of innovation executive for the past 10 years. Prior to that, I was with another general contractor for 5, and all the way back to about 2000, I was an architect working on healthcare projects, science and technology projects, a lot of the complicated stuff. I gravitated to really making my life easier, more efficient. And initially I was gravitated to BIM and VDC. Then I saw the power to bring those technologies to people to facilitate a quality conversation. And I am more encouraged than ever as I start dabbling in AI and also discovering what Datagrid can do. And so I'm really excited to share with you some examples that we literally are just developing within the last couple weeks. So thanks, Tiago.
Thanks, Chris.
You're on mute, but there you go.
There you go. So we have been working with BN on a few of these use cases, but they're all very new. So I welcome everybody to take it as a discovery. My background in AI dates back to when AI wasn't a thing, when everything that was done with anything remotely similar to machine learning and AI was applied in physics. So I have a background in physics. I built a lot of AI and physics solvers. Then I ended up getting into mechanical engineering, built a mechanical engineering software tool that was then acquired by Autodesk and is now part of the product called Fusion 360, which is a great business for Autodesk and it's a great product. At Autodesk, I took over a lot of the data initiatives that were being formed up in the company. There was not a lot of data at the time, and I started my career there with mechanical, and I left with like a very large data strategy that Autodesk has been executing for the past few years. That includes bringing in to market a lot of different ways that people interact with design data on the cloud. Autodesk is also an investor in Datagrid, so we have a good relationship with them, but we're kind of the Switzerland of data, so we connect to all the different data sources and everything. And today we'll be talking about SOPs, but more broadly, we'll be talking about AI agents, which I think is a huge part of where the world is going and what's needed from companies building software and building solutions. So everybody knows that teams spend more time looking for information than actually using it. And there's some studies that, whenever somebody needs to go find some information, that takes about, it takes them an hour, but then in totality, it takes maybe several people an hour. So only about a couple hours of work can be done a day when you have a lot of digital knowledge that you have to retrieve and understand. This causes a massive amount of inefficiency in our companies. It's not exclusive to construction, but construction has acute pains when it comes down to efficiency. So we'll be talking about that deeply today. Everybody knows that a lot of the construction data is locked into unstructured sources and documents, and that finding all this information and gaining context is very expensive for companies. And then reworking that into digital information is really hard. And then there's a tremendous amount of time that is just spent and wasted when you have to work with this type of information. But finding information is really not enough. And this comes down to really the difference between, tools that help you find stuff, which have been around since before AI was a thing. Vector searches, vector databases, global search inside of different tools. That's been around for a very long time. But just finding those things isn't enough, because you have to actually do work after you find it. And very often you have to find something that leads you to find something else, then leads you to find to something else. So really, agentic AI is the future of AI. And the reason for that is because we need agency with AI. You cannot just have artificial intelligence, you have to have agency with that. And agency is not that complicated to understand. Agency is just the ability of an entity to take control over their environment and decide what actions they should take to perform a goal. And you can see that in all kinds of life forms. It doesn't have to come with intelligence or with higher intelligence. You can see ants do this all the time. You can see birds have agency. You can see dogs have agency. Any living creature really has agency. And even to a degree, things that are non-intelligent have agency, like plants that don't necessarily have brains. They have agency to decide if they're going to grow roots in this way or that way. So that's an important aspect. Agency is not directly related to intelligence, is associated to it, but it's a unique characteristic, and it's important that everybody understands that that's what's going to bring us the true value of artificial intelligence, is agency alongside it. So with that, we want to make humans really the most valuable part of the work. Today, there's a lot of wasted human time on things that require tasks to be executed. And
Tiago, are you sharing your screen?
I am, yes.
Okay.
Are you able to see it?
I'm not, but that's my problem. So keep going.
Oh, is everybody not able to see my screen? That would be a problem. Let's see in the Q&A. We can see it. All right, great.
Okay, cool. Sorry.
Thank you. There's in the webinar screen for Zoom, there's like webinar, and then there's like screen share. So that's where you generally find it. So finding information is important, and then just my thought track here is like really having agency is the solution to a lot of these problems, because you need to find information and you need to execute a bunch of tasks, and to replace really the human effort that goes into things, you need to have agentic. You need to take over what the human does. You can't just give more software to humans. That's really the thinking. Like, we have had SaaS software for the past 20 years, and we all know we go around dozens of tools every day, and we are the ones executing the tasks. So we're using the tools to like just help us out, and that makes it very difficult. And I think like just figuring that out is really what will make humans more valuable. And especially in an age where you're going to have intelligence for free, like the real value of humans is going to be strategic thinking, it's going to be relationship building, it's going to be these things that only humans can actually do well. And that's what we're trying to do here at Datagrid. We're trying to make sure that we build agents that really have agency to go around and execute tasks and complete tasks to the full extent, so that you can get time back, essentially. So we want to cut down 90% of the work that people have to do in terms of finding stuff, but then completing that work all the way to the end is really the critical piece. So we'll talk about SOPs, and then why SOPs. First of all, we'll approach this in a discovery mode here with you all, and then share like what we understand of SOPs and how we are approaching it. So first of all, why SOPs? Why do we need to have SOPs, especially in construction? And the thing is, construction has been behind productivity. Everybody knows this. if I repeat this once more, I think people are gonna, be tired of it. We all seen these graphs before, but really, why is this happening, right? And the reason why this is happening is because it's really hard to standardize a construction process. It's really hard to standardize construction process. And the reason why we lost productivity in construction is because we do different types of buildings. They're all different. They're more customized than ever, and they are more complex. That's why productivity drops. It isn't because construction has necessarily just adopted more technologies. It's that the projects that we're executing now compared to projects we executed in the 80s are very different, and they're very complicated. And the tools haven't really come to par with those projects. That's the reason why productivity dropped. And it's really, everybody likes to talk about the productivity drop and nobody pinpoints why. And that's really why, is because it's very complicated to execute a building today. They're very custom, they're very different. And getting good people in these projects is extremely difficult. Because experience has been dropping. Like, people have less and less experience on the types of things we need them to have. So why are we gonna do about all of this? So the focus for this talk is really to talk about SOPs, in the sense that we want to stop the bleeding, right? We want to stop the problem with efficiency that has been plaguing the industry for so long. And the reason why efficiency is such a big deal in construction is because you only have so many people, the margins are tight, and you have to execute these projects more efficiently to be able to gain back some time and some space to be able to adopt better technology and to become better at what you do, essentially, as a construction company. So, I have noted, I've been having lots of conversations about this with a lot of people, and I have, essentially, like, I'm sharing here what I have learned and what I understand from this problem. You see PEs at the job, they want to, become soup. PEs want to become PMs. You see, folks that are foremen and want to become superintendents, and folks want to stay in that track. They want to grow in their careers, and they want to work 40 hours a week. They want to go back to their families, and they want to have their work complete without struggling and going way and beyond because their owner's screaming at them. So the way to do that is to increase efficiency by adopting, finally, artificial intelligence, which is the solution to a lot of these problems, to be honest, because increasing efficiency with arbitrary data, arbitrary inputs, and arbitrary context is only possible with AI. So really, we are at the age where we're very fortunate to be at the age where construction can adopt artificial intelligence to actually go to the next level. It's a unique opportunity in construction. And I'll give you a real example of a real job. In a real walk I had with Chris on one of their builds, and this was at a table, at a desk that a PE had, and this is how the PE does closing RFIs and closing submittals, and this is just the steps that PE takes to do it. Like, if you look at a software tool, the software thinks that you normally just go in there and you close the RFI, or you open the RFI, or you close the submittal. But the reality is the actual PE, they are coordinating a number of things to actually close that RFI and actually complete that task. So what does it look like if we give that, take a look at outside of construction, right? SOPs are everywhere. Like, this is an SOP for video extraction that we actually, use internally. We actually developed this SOP. We look at a video and we go through these steps. We documented this kind of thing. And why do we do it? Because we want to do more with less. We want to have this repeatable process. So I'll dive into that PE case where we want AI to really execute the entire standard operating procedure. But before we go down that path, I want to talk about what are these things and how to think about them and how to structure them. So we'll pass the presentation to Chris, who will walk us through what are SOPs in construction and, like, how do we think about organizing them.
Great, gladly. So I'll quote a mentor of mine, and he reminds me that a problem in the mind is is a space for a solution to fall into. So I'll let that land on you and give you a snapshot at my team really huddled in a room doing some value stream mapping. So anyone familiar with value stream mapping, you're describing a series of steps, you're identifying some pain points, in this case with red sticky notes, and then you're proposing solutions. So this is what our entire 3D coordination process looks like. Is a bit of a mess, but then I grabbed it and it looked a little bit more like, let's see if I can grab it. Like if you guys can see my screen like this. So there's 3 layers. First, we have the blue boxes, which are really the current state, broken up into several stages. And then the red flags identify where there's pain, so visually, where can I make an impact on the efficiency and the life of my people? And then finally, in these little brackets, there's some proposed countermeasures. So with all that said, I'm going to share another quick snapshot. This is a proposed future state. So this is a swim lane diagram. I'm sure we've all seen them. We have very specific roles and then a series of steps that each of those roles are responsible for. And this is a thinking tool. As I think through the process and develop the practice, it's clear to me that maybe some steps should be shared. So this is an iterative process. In this case, the use case is really relieving some of the, we might call it burden from the 3D BIM coordination process from a specialist, and then enabling someone on site to assume some of that responsibility. And then taking advantage of some automations, some AI to really report metrics. Without AI and the technology we have today, I know that the best practices that I'm proposing here, I'll give you a snapshot of them. You can look at these a little bit later. Really might not be realistic. I might even call them aspirational, but I am convinced more than ever that we can begin to really quantify the value of these impacts much better with the AI tools we have at our disposal. Not only that, but really making data available to really support the process better than ever. So that's just a snapshot of an SOP that I hacked out in a day. And I sent Tiago a message just on the side. It's like, it's mind-boggling how quickly we can create these SOPs these days with simple tools like our, Microsoft Copilot or ChatGPT, just to iterate so rapidly. I mean, that text might have taken me a week, and it took me probably 2 hours yesterday to work through. So, thanks, Tiago.
Thanks, Chris. So then breaking this down, like what we're seeing is, if you take the work that Chris is doing here to collect those thoughts, you have like really 3 main axes, right? Practices, processes, and tools. And the way that we think about this is really we want AI to do all the 3 things, right? Or at least to guarantee some process and tool usage across the different types of SOPs you need to execute. So we're going to actually go and take one of these diagrams that Chris built as an input to the AI, so that it can actually do the task entirely based on the diagrammatic view that you had in there. So I'll go one step forward here, and then Chris, you may want to comment on this, but we'll walk through what's practice, what's process, and tool. So on the practice side, it's really about how to standardize tasks. So if you want to, chime in here on practice, that might be helpful. And then a couple examples will be good.
Sure. A lot of times when I think about practice, it's useful to think of an outline. How would you complete a task with some simple steps and some bullet points? And you half the battle is just getting started. And these are just some examples of what an outline might look like. So for instance, I want to track resolution time of a clash. And it's important for me to really monitor and report on how long does it take for a clash to get resolved, and then identify very quickly which clashes aren't getting resolved and understand why.
Right. On the process, those are going to be those diagrams and the sort of swim lanes, mermaid charts, like whatever sources you have. We're going to take all of this into an AI in this talk here today and talk about how we make an actual agent that does these tasks. So, in the process side, swim lanes like this one will serve as an input to AI. But, just talking about the work, like what is the outcome, for these swim lanes today when you execute them in your process?
Okay.
Yeah, I guess inputs and outputs is really the main thing.
Yeah. And inputs and outputs, a lot of the inputs and outputs in my SOPs are aspirational, and for a good reason. You always want to know what else. Well, what is the scope of work? What is the expectation when you're handing off from one step to the next? What's included in these little arrows as they connect the different boxes?
Right. And then last, on tools. So, an SOP is really, there's no execution of the SOP if there's no access to tools. So whenever you need to actually execute one of these things, AI needs to take advantage of the tools to be able to do it, which means it needs to actually collaborate with the different tools and execute the tasks and then figure out ways around it. Back to agency, like a human has agency to choose what's the best tool, and they may actually fail at using a certain tool and then have to go back and choose another one. So, maybe you talk a little bit about what's, how you look at dictating tools within.
Yeah. So as I'm sure many of us on the phone today were inspired by the Toyota way. And one takeaway from the Toyota way is you always make your tools support your process. Don't let your tools dictate your process. So I just wanted a little diagram for everyone on the top right, just to and we know that Datagrid is really set up to do that, to use the make the tools work for the process.
Thank you. So our goal here today is going to be to look at this process that is today designed by humans and executed by humans and make it so that it can be designed by the AI and executed by the AI. Okay, so that's the goal here today, is for us to talk about what is an SOP when it comes down to changing the way we're thinking about this. So normally you design these SOPs for people to read. How do we make AI read this and actually execute with the proper process, with the proper tools, and actually complete the task so that the human doesn't have to be involved? So really going from question, instead of going from question to answer, you go from question to solution, which is really the goal here, is to actually achieve something at the end, not just give the human more information that they have to put together. So when we put that closing RFI stack, there's one for opening RFIs actually. When we put that together, this is what you get on the right. So the AI actually can go and execute the entire task from the beginning to the end. And why is this important? Because that shows agency, right? I didn't actually go into Procore to create that RFI. I literally just posted the actual drawing, which came from a subcontractor and had a marked up red line in it, a clouded drawing with a question. I posted that into the agent, and the agent took care to interface with the tools and actually execute the task. So that's the goal for all of this, is to really take the work that the human is doing and make that really straightforward and easy. So I'll play this little video here showing how this actually works. In the very beginning here, you can see there's a markup in the drawing. We're looking at that markup. It's written that the wall is placed at the wrong angle. And I went to the agent. I just gave that PDF and I asked it to to create the RFI. So I actually validated that this is an important RFI. So I have to still do the human work to understand that this is important and it must be solved. But the rest I don't have to do, right? I don't have as a human to go in and extract like all the different details that are marked up in that drawing, extract the name of the engineer, the people that are responsible, do all of this. And you can see here the AI actually, as it goes through executing this task, it fails. And it's okay, like a human would, right? Like it initially tried to extract the data in a certain way and it failed. And it took a turn and it decided to then analyze the data in a different way to find what was in the markups and the relevant details on the RFI, and then create an actual RFI. And this actual RFI here, the template for this RFI is what's the SOP, right? At the end, the AI actually asked me to go and log in into Procore to then send that RFI to Procore. So really, the entire work of creating the thing is now done by the AI. What's interesting about SOPs is just how we actually take that instruction of how we work internally, and we tell the AI to work in that way. That's really what SOPs are all about. The AI still has to do the work, but it has to do the work in the way that we think it should do the work. So that's the goal here. That's what we're going to be exploring, and how to build that type of agent. So here you can see after, once you build these things, AI can learn from it. It can continue to execute. So if you ask it to continue doing that work, you can automate that and just do it again and again. It can do it on a schedule. It can do it on, change. Or you can do it when certain actions happen. So AI can actually take care of coordinating not only the problem, but coordinating the solution for you. And so let's get started. Let's talk about the two things we need to do to get this working. One, we're going to be doing this by mastering documents, and then we'll be doing this by deploying the agents that get to be used. So mastering documents is really what we're going to go through from the point of view where Chris was kind of showing his documentation on an SOP, and then how we take that into an AI. And then the deploying the agents is, I'm going to talk about how we take the agents to the people that need it. So let's start with mastering documents. So mastering documents is really one of the key parts about this talk. Is you don't really have really great SOPs in your company most part of the time. You have a bunch of notes, you have a bunch of information, but you don't have a really good set of instructions that can be repeated each time, because each project is so different. Let's remind ourselves, we're building different buildings that are very complicated, very different than the buildings we built back in the day. And every one of these things require a change in process. So what we have is a lot of process that we have executed in the past that we can learn from, and we can piece that together into something that's useful. So our knowledge base for an SOP is going to be a mix of documents, stuff that generated from task, and custom instructions. These are the pieces that we're going to put together here today to build this SOP agent. You see here that what I would do is I'm going to actually just paste one of the documents that Chris had shared in the beginning, the entire PDF, and I actually ask the AI to extract a detailed SOP with process, tools, and practices. And in fact, I go a step further here and I actually instruct the AI on how to write it, because I want my SOPs to be standardized. They're standards. I want them to be standardized. I want them to be organized as processes, tools, and practices. So I asked the AI to really take that as an input, and you see what the AI does is actually it writes the actual SOP off of our PDF information. So that 3D clash detection that BNB Builders is using to run their process, the AI is now learning that clash detection process and writing the actual document in a way that's organized and easy to understand. As we do this, the AI will just take this information and keep it in its memory so that it can use it in the future. So just by doing this, we already have memories that were created, which contain the types of practices, process, and tools that are going to be used when we're doing our clash detection setup. This is all the content that was written, all the diagrammatic views, everything is contained in here. I think we can get questions in the end. I should have actually mentioned that. we'll go through the questions in the end. But please, if you have questions about this part, post it, and we'll get to it in the end. So what to consider when mastering documents for SOP? Actually, there's a question. Let's just go through questions now. I don't know how to accept the questions. Yeah, I do not know. I think I have to read it. You have to type it and then I can answer. There was a question about the AI being mainstream one or trained. Well, so there's a lot of detail to this. We use a number of large language model, vision models, and different types of classification models to do different types of tasks. Depending on the task we're executing, we'll use a specific model, and then we'll work off of learning the data on top of that model, learning the embeddings, and using those embeddings to essentially customize the way that the agent thinks and learns and talks to that account. That's all individualized on each account. And the only access to the data that you put in Datagrid is you and the AI. Like, we don't even have access to go in there unless you invite us into your account. So it's you and the AI. If you delete the AI, the memories go away. If you delete the data goes away. And so you have full control over the life cycle of your data within Datagrid. So there was a couple questions there. I can continue answering questions as they come. So on mastering documents, Chris, do you have any comments on that previous screen just before I move forward? Because this was that document we worked through.
No, just the comment is that that's what I'm going to do as soon as we get off this webinar.
And I'll teach everybody a little bit on how to prompt for writing styles. I think it's really important that everybody understands the power of this. It's how LLMs are trained, so you should definitely know how this works. So you're not, just guess prompting. You're actually, you actually know what you're doing when you're building these things. So on mastering documents, mastering documents really is about curating a set of documents that are the reference for the SOPs. And those documents will essentially build out the core principles that the AI will use to execute the task. And again, remember, the AI is going to go create RFIs. It's going to go create submittals. It's going to go change the status of things. So the more you teach how the AI should be thinking about these things, the more you will do in the way that your company thinks about it. And so curating the documents is important, but also, if you don't have these documents, just make them from scraps. And I'll show how to do that. Like, you can literally just copy and paste images, PDFs, scraps of text, emails, anything. And you can have the AI just generate these and get better at it. So use AI to generate SOPs. Definitely don't write them by hand, all of them. The ones that you want to be specific, definitely do that. And then, finally, combining practice processing tools into individual documents that are associated together is really important, so that the AI can actually combine those learnings. You don't want to combine all the tools you ever bought for your company. That doesn't serve AI. It serves the AI to know what process those tools are used for. So keep it all together, practice processing tools. And then finally, perfection is your enemy. If you're trying to build the perfect SOP, it's probably going to take a lot longer. So, whatever content you have, that's really the power of AI, is to standardize this content for us so that you get value out of it immediately. And then the last is, when you store these documents, you can put them anywhere. In Datagrid, you'll see as we go into the product, you'll see here that we essentially able to pull data from Google Drive. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to pull data from Google Drive, but we have Microsoft 365 support. We have data that comes from other places. So as we built this out, you'll see that you can bring data from anywhere. So just make sure you have that set up and easy to access. And then the second part of this is going to be about deploying the agents. Like, why build SOPs if you're not going to deploy an agent, right? So you should definitely think about deploying and bringing them to production, bringing them to your teams, and enabling your teams to use it. And this will be a simple example of agency that I think is really powerful. It shows an agent basically going and looking at a response, finding an answer to a question. Very simple, actually. Lots of demos out there and products that can find answers to questions. But what's interesting here is that the agent decided to actually find discrepancies as well, which is really important. And he combined the status of an RFI with a drawing response to find the accurate final response. So this is really powerful. It's really easy. You can access this from the web once you have it set up. You can see here there is no bottom of the footing because that's not a thing. There's just footing elevation, which is really the way that the agent thinks about footing elevation at this point after have learned that data. And you can see, there's no southeast corner, it's like a southwest corner of the building. And it's able to actually go and find that out, disambiguate, and get the answer. But this is only possible because the agent has already learned the data, and you can continue building out from those initial SOPs. You can take that to the field so that if people need to access this information off of the phone, they can text the agent and ask a question. The agent can look at that information, provide the answer. You can see here, this is a very standard way to deploy agents. People don't need to access an app. They don't need to access even a login. They just need a phone number. They can text and get the answers for that. Very effective way to deploy. And then finally, you can deploy agents to your Microsoft Teams account. And you see what I'm trying to do here, right? Like every interaction between a human and another human, we want AI to be part of it. Because we want the human to get a faster, more accurate answer than they would get from the other human. And then we want the AI to get ahead and get tasks done. So we're trying to bring the AI where communication is happening. So if communication is happening on the phone, deploy agents there. If communication is happening in Teams, deploy it there. If you want folks to be accessing on the web, deploy it there. If it's accessing by email, we have an email connector. The agent can send emails. So it's really about intermediating these interactions with AI that has access to all the data, different than the human that doesn't have access to all the data, doesn't have access to all the SOPs. So we want to interface every interaction with information with AI to reduce the risk that you get the wrong answer, or reduce the risk that a human is going to be stopped to do something when the AI would have a better answer. Now, you're still responsible for verifying that the answer is the right answer, and then actually completing the task and so on. There's a couple more questions that I'm going to pause and answer. Does the SOP process in Datagrid stay within our own instance of Datagrid, or those are Datagrid's own models for its own use? No, we do not train on your data. There is no training that goes back into our system. So all the data is used only to provide the service. The AI uses all of your data to provide the service to you. And if you delete your data, that's gone. If you delete the agent, whatever memories the agent has is gone. And we do not bring any data into our training. Can you use the tool to extract data into a tabular format? Yes. I'll show that in the example that we had. And then the other question was about, can we pull info from Teams, chats, or emails? Yes, you can pull the info from Teams, chats, and emails. I'll go into the tabular format extraction piece. I think that's going to be an interesting one. And then we'll talk about the connection to sources. And just things to consider here, permissions are super important. With AI tools, you want to make sure AI only has access to the data that is needed to provide the answer. So we have the concept of team spaces. They're all isolated. You can control access to agents with contact lists. So the agent can have a phone number contact list that he can use to communicate. And you can control the access to data or access to only agents within the platform. Also using single sign-on is really important, so that you're not creating accounts that you can't manage. and then create isolated deployments for projects versus deployments for the entire finance department. We have all kinds of use cases, so we have seen a lot of this in different ways. And then I think the last question was that I saw there was like, how is this different than something like ChatGPT? Well, yeah, so in ChatGPT, you wouldn't be able to bring your data, first of all. You're not going to be able to connect Procore and execute, create an RFI in Procore from ChatGPT or connect any of these tools to do any of these tasks. So that's the first thing, is the access to all of the data so that the agent can actually execute and do the task. And then the second piece is we have a lot of ways that the system is customized, so that when you create an agent, these are already designed so that they are specifically designed to do tasks that are relevant to construction. So all of our construction agents, they have very customized instructions on how to operate, and then like standard SOPs that we believe are decent, but they're all customizable, that can be taken further to the use case that people need. About a list of software that can be connected to, yeah, the software list is in inside of the application. You can see all of our production connectors, and in Datagrid, datagrid.com/connectors, you'll see all of our connectors, and then also full documentation and transparency around what each connector supports. So like when we say we support Procore, for example, like you want to make sure that it supports all the endpoints you want. So if you want an agent that works with budget data, you want to make sure like that the connector supports it. So like we support 200 endpoints for Procore alone, hundreds of endpoints across Autodesk, and I mean in total I think we're in the several thousands of endpoints we support. So it's not just the connector; it's really like how deep do you go into each one of these things. Like quality and safety in Procore is a very detailed topic, so you want to we get all the data for that. Now on to building the SOPs. I'll just show a couple examples here. This is a super simple integration we did. We have, I'll maximize my screen here so that okay. So I'll walk through a couple examples where we'll do this. I mean, the full screen isn't really working for me. Okay. So, in this example, like I just asked, in fact, like, again, when you talk about building from scraps, I actually just asked the agent to go to Procore's RFI template library and then pull that. I say, hey, read this and learn about RFIs. And what the agent did is it actually went to that website, pulled that page down, and then extracted how RFI templates are described in Procore. And then he created all of that as memories about RFI templates. So literally, like, again, when I say building from scraps, this is what we're talking about. We are like pasting images, we're throwing in PDFs, we're uploading parts of information in here, and we're asking the agent to basically learn it. You can see those 3D coordination tasks that Chris has described. They were all thrown into the AI just as standard documents. Now I can ask my AI, like, hey, how should we do coordination in Revisto? And he knows how to do coordination in Revisto. And he knows how to do those tasks. We don't have any actions for something like Revisto yet, but we have a number of actions coming in for Procore. And we'll be adding actions very fast here in the coming months. So if you have ideas of actions you want the AI to perform, let us know. Like creating an issue in Revisto, it might be an interesting action. And we would be adding those to the agent so that they can coordinate the actual task all the way to the end. When I think about building from scratch, I really mean like, let's say I wanted the AI to learn this particular diagram here. I can actually say, can you look into this picture and learn what you can from it. And as I do this, what's really happening is the AI is creating a plan on how to extract that image, how to extract that content, is looking at that image I just pasted, and is correlating that with the rest of the data, and how that process is diagrammatic design. So as you do this, what is happening in the background is the AI is gaining that knowledge as memories, and those memories are then used by the agent when you're talking to it. So like whenever somebody's start talking about, Revisto or whatnot, those memories are going to come to surface, and they're going to be used by the agent to provide that feedback and service. So that's what's important about the way that this works, is we want the AI to just create the most amount of memories possible to be able to execute these tasks. I'll show you the memories in a bit as we kind of load this up here. I'll go into a couple more examples on how this data came in. So the way we imported the data is, and I'll zoom in a little bit here. The way we imported this is we connected Google Drive, and Google Drive is it's just a login to Google Drive, because we wanted the AI to learn a number of data points. We didn't want it to just go like step by step like we just did. We wanted to take in all of the data. So we selected a folder in Google Drive, and that folder was imported into the system. That folder contained a number of documents that Chris and I put together. So you can actually pick the folder in Drive. You can see here what our folder contains. There's the last planner system. There is a couple other documents here that we threw in, and the agent was able to like go and fetch that information and learn from it. Now, as we're working through the agent here, you can see that the data that was pulled in contain all of those PDFs, contained all of those drawings, all these specifications, right? So it was read by the AI, and it was actually learned, and then is now part of the memory that it can do tasks. Do you have anything to add to this, Chris, before I go into like generating in more detail?
No, I don't. Keep going. Thank you.
Okay. So now that we have the now I want to walk through a couple more examples here before we go through the rest. But as we ask questions about this, and for example, I was asking about how to tie a sheet pen knot, and this is a specific page that explains how to do this knot. So the AI didn't just learn that, it kept these memories about it. So whenever I ask anything about this, it will learn. I've been pulling documents and learning from those documents, and the AI basically learned those tasks. So when I ask a question about what is you can see here how to fix a license when it drops to C, it actually remembers that page that it read, that, in fact, like to fix your license, you have 30 days to bring that back up. And this is the actual document that fed that. So this is a PGE specification for contractors. So as you start using and asking questions and asking it to do things, it's leveraging all of those learnings and remembering where that instruction came from. So that's how that, it becomes applicable, and everybody leverages and uses it essentially. At the end, they ask questions, they get answers that have citations to them, and they're very specific on where that information came from. And then the last piece here is on the last planner. I wanted to just do that one as an example. And I'll walk you through generating that from the last planner as an example here. Do you want to walk us through the last planner before I show it, just so like high level? I can open.
Sure, I'll talk through it very high level.
What is the last planner for people that don't know what this is?
Yeah, so the last planner is like the probably flagship, we might call it a tool, or more aptly a process to really collaborate and agree on what a team should do. A construction team that starts by identifying milestones, And then pulling back from those milestones, we agree how we reach that milestone in a process called pull planning that I'm sure many of us are familiar with. A lot of teams stop there, but those who are adept in the complete process know that the next step is having a discussion on a weekly basis about what we can do. And the way we do that is we look ahead 6 weeks and ask of every activity, is this activity ready to start? And if it's not ready to start, it's constrained, and we all agree on how we're going to release it. And then the next step, on a weekly basis, we all commit on what we will do now that ideally all the constraints are released. And then finally, on a daily basis, we all have a discussion about what we did do. And then if we didn't do it, we identify why, and then we learn. And that's a grand oversimplification. There's many tools developed specifically for this process. Thanks for showing this graphic. But this is it. And
Great. Thanks for
thank
that. Yeah, thanks for that. So as you see, like these processes can be really complex. And when you ask the AI a question about the last planner, it now knows everything about the last planner. So that PDF we uploaded, it's fully known by the agent now. And it's able to answer any questions about the process. So like, I don't know anything about the last planner because I didn't study it, but I know how amazing it is. So I'll be using the AI to learn more about the last planner. But essentially now this information can be used by the agent in planning. So when you ask it to execute a task, it actually executes the task using those instructions. And by executing tasks, we'll do another webinar where we show how the agent can execute full tasks and complete them. But by that I mean like this sort of thing where you would post a file and ask the agent to do a task, like create this RFI for me. The agent would use all the information you provided in terms of an SOP to actually go and execute that task all the way to the end in the way that is makes sense. So the last planner would affect scheduling, for example. So as you bring in your last planner, specification or documentation, that will be used to create that scheduling tasks and execute those scheduling tasks and figure out how to get around issues and problems that need to be executed. I didn't really get to show like extracting tables and so on. Yes, that's very straightforward. And there's so much more I could be showing, but we're going to run out of time here. So I'll just get to the questions, and we'll share after this meeting. We'll share a couple more things about SOPs, and then a couple templates on how you can use SOPs. And then finally, our goal here is to complete full tasks with SOPs, and then use those SOPs so that the agents can process and execute the tasks that are repetitive and that everybody does every day in construction that takes so much time from our teams. Finally, we did our live demo here, and I'll just cover the questions. SOPs are really about scaling and scaling process, practice, and tools. AI can help you master those documents and SOPs and help you really get the most value out of the tasks that you're trying to execute. And also, it can help you deliver the results to your teams by making that a really easy process through all the means of communication that your teams already use. So we'll share this back at the end here so you can have it as a reference, and we're happy to talk about it and help you deploy SOPs in your company. Now to the last questions we had. Does it always give sources like Perplexity? Yes, so we always cite every source for multiple reasons. One is to be accurate, and also to be able to explain exactly like how we drove to that conclusion. Memories, there's some specifics and technical questions about memories, how memories work. Yeah, memories are quite particular. We have a agentic system that executes tasks and remembers things about the interactions it had, and how and a lot more. So memories are very detailed. It's a huge part of our system, and is unlike ChatGPT. ChatGPT is just extracting like personal things you share, like I like this or I like that. We go way beyond that, because we're dealing with tool execution across software platforms and other things. Can you pull in Teams chats and emails? Yes. So yeah, you can bring in all of your data, including Microsoft Teams data that is in the chats in Teams. So we have an import workflow for Teams, and we also have the ability to connect to Microsoft Teams to like post messages to Teams, and then choose which channels in Teams the agent should participate in. So that's when you connect to Microsoft Teams here, you log in, we list out all the channels, and then you can choose the SOP expert, like which channels does it join and how does it participate and engage. That's all I had to share. I hope this was instructive and everybody learned something from this, and we're happy to continue the conversation offline. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Tiago.